we have to differentiate between what was already there that's amplified and what's a learned behavior. You can condition somebody to feel a certain way or believe a certain thing about anything, not just narcissism. And it can become pretty fixed over time. The difference is if that starting material is not narcissistic in nature, you can unlearn what you've been conditioned to learn. Gotcha. It's much more stable in the sense of fixed and static when somebody has already been predisposed to be a certain way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it actually does.
I would be ridiculous to say that parenting doesn't influence children and that you can't make someone believe something about themselves that's either true or untrue. But how they make meaning out of that and how they grasp onto it and what they choose to do with it has a lot to do with the genetic traits.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you can teach somebody to be narcissistic for sure.
What about self-esteem?
So according to research that I have stumbled upon, there is a extremely weak correlation. And let me just say this.
I love the way you start everything, or just about everything, according to the research. It's not, this is the way it is. It's not, it's always according to the research. I mean, my point of that being, everything you say is very well backed up. You're just not coming up with this just to come up with it. It's not, it is that it's backed up by evidence.
Well, and the reality is, I would be very embarrassed if I couldn't back up claims with research. Yeah. Like if I was creating this in the laboratory of my mind and then someone says, show me, and I go, well, it's just because I said so. I mean, to me, that would be humiliating. So yeah. I don't, commit to something unless I've read it. Yeah. But yes, there's a very weak, some research has shown that there is a very weak relationship between self-esteem and narcissism, that they are just, they're involved in completely separate core belief systems. And so one doesn't cause the other, and they're not significantly related enough to even be a thing. So that's kind of why I put that part in my book is, you may have heard that narcissism is the result of like low self-esteem, or that narcissists suffer from this. And what the new research is showing is that there's a very insignificant relationship between the two. They're very weakly related.
So it's not a mask for their low self-esteem.
It's not, no. It is a mask, but it's not a mask for low self-esteem. Now, fragile self-esteem is another story because there really isn't an actual identifiable self underneath all the facade of the image management and the impression management. If you point out a flaw in their character, or if you provide evidence that they aren't who they say they are, that can destabilize them, certainly. And so they can appear vulnerable. But it's not because they are insecure, it's because they've been outed. They've been humiliated, or they've been exposed, and they don't like that because they're no longer in control of managing their image. But it's not because you wounded them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then if you do expose them or out them, then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, and they also play the victim. So they come to therapy after they've been exposed, and they say, oh my God, you're not going to believe what happened to me. I feel very depressed. I feel so stressed. And then the therapist, assuming collaboration, thinks that that's their baseline level of functioning all day, every day, when in reality, they're just not getting what they want in the moment, and so they're a bit deflated. That's going to go over most people's head, though, because they're just going to assume, why would somebody come and pay for therapy if they're not going to tell me the truth? Well, it's because narcissists they can't tell the truth. So you got to assume that they're lying.
Why is that? It seems like sometimes they'll just lie just to lie.
They do lie just to lie because it's something that kind of starts off as conscious and deliberate and then becomes so pervasive that it becomes automatic and habitual. But they think they think that lying is what is required in order to stay where they are. Like, it's sort of like it's like a self-preservation, even when it's not necessary. And they lie about mundane, trivial things too, because they can. And it's pathological. So at some point it becomes it's just part of who they are. And they'll even sometimes say, I don't even know why I lied about that.
Do they realize they're lying? And I'm sorry to ask maybe some stupid questions on that, but do they?
Yeah, they know.
They do. But that's just life. It's just like breathing.
It's just the way it is. It's only a problem if you call them on it. It's not a problem morally to them, like or ethically or inherently. They don't see it as problematic until it's challenged.
It's just so messed up. And for those for those that are in a relationship with someone or have been in a relationship with someone that's narcissistic, that's a narcissist.
Yeah.
So lonely.
Yeah, it's isolating.